You can't go out playing golf having fun.
Fun. Senor, you've obviously never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas. On Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
You can't go out playing golf.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Week 9 of Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. We are in the second half of the NFL season. Can you believe it, Greg?
I cannot. I just would like to start off though by calling you my daddy, since I'm sure you were gonna get to it and rub it in anyway. I see me making a rousing comeback on our head-to-heads the second half of the year, because I won't do worse than 500 because I'm not doing any more head-to-head battles.
You're not, so you're going to go 0-0 is going to be the improvement.
0-0 in the second half of the year. That will be the improvement.
You're going with the Jerry Seinfeld approach. I choose not to run.
Even Steven. I'm even Steven.
Oh, boy. Yes, but I do have to say I was very happy that the Indianapolis Colts provided what is maybe my second cigar game of the season down the second half as they pulled away from the Detroit Lions. Very happy with that one. But listen, you got to push. You got to push there with the total on the Tennessee Titans game, which hit right at 51. But I will say that the Cincinnati Bengals played spoiler for a lot of people in their survivor leagues last week as they pulled out the outright upset there. What do you make of Cincinnati and Tennessee taking away from that game?
Why are you being cute about all this, making me talk about this game? So I have a legitimate question here, and that would be because I was happy because I had it at 49.
All right, before you do this,
for less than 2 seconds.
Before you make your point, tilt down on your camera there, because you're just at the bottom of the screen. There we go. Now I can see you. Go ahead.
So I guess what I'm wondering is how we can get the better numbers out later, right? Because we were waiting on some line injuries, which was 100% the wrong handicap, right? Sometimes you're just wrong, right? And I was wrong with all those offensive linemen for Cincinnati, and they lost a guy in like the first quarter.
Right. And
despite losing another guy and having to shuffle more dudes around, they still beat them. And I could only enjoy so I ended up getting because there was weather, and I was checking the weather to see if they were one of the high win games, and I was comfortable with it, so I still played over, but it came down from 51 to 49, and that's the one where I gave it out at 51, but I had it personally at 49, so I was all excited, and then you just buried me, and you're like, nope, it's a push from the podcast, and it was like, you're right, because that was the one where I challenged you to play against me, and I thought I won that head-to-head, and I was like, see, Joe, see? And
yeah.
You're like, nope, it was a push.
Yeah, I was actually feeling really good about that, but as we like to say, it's never under till it's over, right?
Indeed.
And that one came right down to the wire there. I was still worried we were going to get one last score there just to put them in. But the reason I want to talk about Tennessee is because I want to start with Tennessee this week. They are my better beware game of the week. This week they are they are hosting the Chicago Bears, 6.5-point favorites right now for Tennessee. But Greg, I was all over Tennessee in previous years. I am off the Tennessee Titans bandwagon. This defense looks terrible. They look absolutely atrocious out there, and I don't care what you say. I mean, I know how good, we've talked about how good that offense has looked, how good Ryan Tannehill has played. You got to play some defense if you're going to be a championship team, and that's literally what we were talking about with this team was, like, they're Super Bowl contenders. Now, I know they made a trade with the Chargers, picked up a very underrated cornerback, and I think we'll talk about that in a later handicap. So, but in week one, I think it's a little bit, tough to work a new cornerback into a defense defensive scheme, especially when I think you have a coordinator like Mike Vrabel, who is a little bit more complicated in some of his defensive schemes that he plays out there. But I have serious concerns about the Tennessee Titans defense. That pass rush is absolutely awful. They cannot get to the quarterback. And I don't know why they should be favored by 6.5 against anybody right now, considering I think they covered one game so far this season. They have won by more than 6 points, and it was that game against the Buffalo Bills. That was a terrible spot for the Buffalo Bills. They have not managed to blow anybody out. They have issues with field goal kicking, which can come in and cost you, as we've seen clearly here. So this week, I think they're facing a very good defense in the Chicago Bears, and I think that they're going to manage to contain. I'm not going to say completely quell that offense for the Tennessee Titans, but I think that they're going to do enough to keep this game very close. We saw them put up a great fight against the Saints last week, losing that one in overtime. Obviously, I'm sure they're disappointed. My better beware game of the week is watch out for the Tennessee Titans -6.5. I think the Bears keep this one close. And why the Bears still get no respect? I understand they lost, Greg, last week, but the Bears get no respect this season. Why do you think that is?
I mean, probably the eye test and watching the game. I mean, it's tough watching them. I was going to make a little joke about, you can't pick the Bears because Trubisky's out, but that's laughable because he's not even the starter anymore. But it's just tough watching them try and move the ball, right? Like that Saints game, like it was shocking to me that they got back in it. But I think the deal is that they're one of these teams that despite doing it and looking badly, they really muck up the game. And if they can muck up the game and make it kind of just like a knockdown, drag out type of game, they crawl back into it. They did it with Tampa. They did it with New Orleans. I don't like that call at all. That dude fumbled back there in that game. So they did bring it to overtime. They should have lost by in regulation. I think that was kind of a joke that they're going to dictate that was. I've seen so many more people fumble footballs when their forward progress wasn't moving forward. But I think that's been the deal, is that Chicago is looking bad while getting W's. So I think to get the public to lay some money on them, they got to put up bigger numbers. And people probably aren't down on Tennessee. I feel like once you jumped off of Tennessee, I jumped on, and it was not the right time to be jumping on.
Right. I might have jumped off a little bit early, obviously last week being the exception there. But I'm all the way out. I knew that defense was having some concerns. One more thing I want to touch on before we move on from that game is what the hell was number 83 thinking in that game? I mean, he claimed that one of the other players had spit on him, but you can't. First of all, you're going to break your hand. Like, hitting somebody in the helmet has to be the dumbest move in all of sports. It really doesn't do any damage to them, and worst case scenario is you break your hand. Does he feel like he got validated and he got his revenge after that?
So I saw that the first time on mute, and my initial instinct was, what did that guy do? And then I stopped myself mid-thought. I'm like, no, regardless of what he did, like unacceptable behavior. Like, I don't know, man. I think you got to drop more than a 2-game suspension on that dude, because that's just ridiculous. Like, and did he not, like, did he pull his mouthpiece out of his mouth before hitting him in the face?
Yeah, it looked like he did that. And I got to say, though, it's such a dumb move. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, so then your intent is to hurt, right? So it's like, hey, sometimes like you can't really prove intent. If you're taking dude's mouthpiece out, it's because you're trying to break his jaw.
Right.
Like you're trying to get in there, and you don't want his mouthpiece cushioning what you're about to do to him. Like, there you go. I've got intent.
But I don't think Aaron Donald could break a guy's jaw through his helmet with his hand. I mean, this guy's insane.
I don't know, man. These wide receivers, they're spunky. They think a lot of themselves.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I understand if you want to get even with them, right? But you do it after the play stops. You run somewhat across the field, at least 5 yards to go and hit him. So it's like you're making a scene of it when he's standing all alone. You want to get even, hit him with a cutback that block, across during a play or something. And he hurt the team so bad. I was like, they were in a good position on that one there.
And who the heck? Like, it was his name, Wims or Mims?
Wims,
like,
yeah.
What round draft pick is he? And why did they not just cut him immediately?
Well,
that's all I would say. I don't suspect that he's a top 4 or 5 round draft pick. I'd have just dropped him.
Yeah, he's definitely not.
Like he was trying to drop that dude, I'd have dropped him.
He's definitely not Antonio Brown level talent. And how's that for a segue for you as we go into the next game we want to talk about? Antonio Brown and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They look for some revenge this week against the New Orleans Saints. Right now, the Bucs are favorites in this one, 4.5, depending on where you're looking at it there. And I just want to say on the record that I would love to be a housemate on the Big Brother episode that is featuring Tom Brady, Giselle, and Antonio Brown as they go house hunting right now. This is absolutely, what is going on in this world? Down is up is down, 2020, man. This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. How do you like the marriage of Tom Brady and Antonio Brown on and off the field, apparently?
Listen, I've been the annoying little brother, kind of tagging along and living in areas that, you get a little grace period, and he'll have a grace period before he outwears his welcome, and it'll be nice and fun. It'll be like a slumber party every night. We'll see how it goes. Here's another thing that I just wouldn't disrupt my team like this, but if it works, if what they're doing works and they're trotting out those 3 wide receivers and Gronk and two above average running backs in that defense, it's going to be pretty interesting. So I think the risk reward here is pretty high level. So it's and you can't forget about Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller returning to the best 4th wide receiver in the league.
I don't know who you're going to put to cover him when you've got Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin. Godwin officially questionable for this one,
yes,
I believe there.
Miller is already taking advantage of soft third-string wide receiver coverage. Right? He's dicing up and becoming, the Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman. I feel like that. Wes Welker.
There
right?
we go.
Yeah,
yep.
There we go.
Wayne Corbett, if you want to go back, the guy who kind of created the position for the New York Jets before he got concussed out of the league.
It's an oldie, but a goodie. Yeah. But yeah, he's filling into that role pretty well. So it's intriguing. And basically, can we go into who we like for this game? Is now the time?
Yeah, let's do it. So obviously, you liked the Saints in Week 1. You didn't make them an official pick on here because you weren't.
Correct.
You were a little hesitant, but I know you were on them when it came to game day. So obviously, Saints won that game pretty handily. Why do you think it's going to be different this time around?
So the spot and the chemistry, right? You couldn't pick a worse spot for Tampa Bay, right? And everyone was like, ooh, this is a big game. But really, it was like, seriously, you got the Saints who have the same head coach and the same quarterback, and everyone's healthy. And then you have Tampa Bay where you have Tom Brady and all these new parts, and you're trying to fit all that in. So it was a terrible spot for Tampa, and they've looked good. They need this game, right? So New Orleans has got the game already ahead of them. From that side of things, it's a much better spot. Tampa's getting healthier. They're adding guys. And New Orleans certainly getting healthier. Is Mike Thomas going to play? I'm not really all that concerned.
He was questionable when I saw. Yeah, and I don't know, and I don't even know how much is disciplinary. I'm not sure what happened down there, but I've seen the talk about it being disciplinary as much as injury related there. I'm sure he wants to play. He's been saying he wants to play.
I think Mike Thomas and Alshon Jeffrey might have started a club, and maybe they're just too involved in said club to suit up for their football games on Sunday. They have other obligations.
Listen, leave your Philadelphia Eagles out of this and your bitterness, all right?
Wow. So it's neither here nor there to me whether or not he plays. I think Kamara had some foot or ankle issues, but he'll probably play as well. But I think it's going to be a nice statement game for Tampa. The Giants did a big favor here because I feel like if they would have smoked the Giants, I don't know what the look ahead was, but since I'm still getting it at 4, but if they would have, handily beat the Giants by 25, 30 points, maybe we're looking at a 5.5, 6 point line here, but them, struggling to beat the Giants, I think helps and kept this line without inflating it too much. So I'll lay the 4. I'll take Tampa. I like them going in the right direction. And I'm going to start, I don't know if I'm going to start riding them or picking against New Orleans, but it's not October. So we can do this in good conscience.
Yeah.
You hear that, Chris? Not October.
I want to ask you something because you mentioned the fact that it was a bad spot for them last time. You think it's a better spot for them this time. They are coming off short rest. And the one thing about the Giants game is that was really concerning to me, though, is the fact that Giants offensive line looked like they were really dominating that game at some points for the Giants. And they were without Will Hernandez, one of their starting offensive linemen who was out with COVID-19. And I know Brady turned the ball over early. It seemed like they got off to a little bit of a sluggish start. Maybe they were looking ahead already to New Orleans. But any concern about the short week?
I was going to say, can I explain that performance away by the look ahead? That would be basically, it would be highly convenient, but also I think a very real thing, which, by the way, we probably should have had our eyes on, and we should start looking at these types of scenarios where these big games are coming. You should probably pick against Tampa. Hindsight, I know, but that's how I'm going to explain it. Is they were looking ahead and didn't put their best performance out there.
For the record, I was on the Giants on our Monday night pregame show here in New York.
Which helps nobody outside of the New York area.
Well, listen, man, we stream pix11.com. Check it out, man.
All right,
you can check it out anywhere.
I'm your good friend Greg that you do the podcast with, and I had no idea that you were on the Giants.
Oh, I know. I only told it to 1 million people here, 5 million viewing audience, but I guess that's not enough. All right, I see how it is here. The Wingfoot Locks, where we got 20 people. We get 20 people who follow across the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube pages, but that doesn't count. All right, I see how it is.
Little text message, tweet, smoke signal, something.
Listen, I also had the under in that one, which they made me sweat out. I bought it up to 48.5, so very lucky on that one there in the parlay. But that's another story. Anyway, as far as look-ahead games are concerned, I really want to point this out because one of the reasons also that I like Chicago this week is next week, Tennessee has a division battle against Indianapolis. All right. And this is a big stretch for the Colts. And I guess we could talk about this one a little bit here. The Colts are playing Baltimore this week. They opened as, I guess in some places it was 2.5 point underdogs at home. That game now is either a pick 'em or the Colts are -1. What do you make of that one after Baltimore's coming off that loss where Lamar Jackson looked a little bit lost against that Pittsburgh defense?
Yeah, good time to pick Baltimore. I think we were talking about this before. I've never been a huge Lamar fan, but I certainly think he's better than he showed up last week. And obviously those interceptions were just brutal. And that pick 6 immediately, they want to be front runners, and they impose their will. Like I'm shocked. I was on Pittsburgh, right? So obviously I'm happy by the outcome, but Baltimore did exactly what they wanted to do in that game. and still lost. And it was obviously because of the turnovers, but they moved the ball. They rushed for like 150 plus yards there. Dobbins and Gus were moving the ball everywhere, and it was just bad quarterback play. So I think it's a good bet on spot when everyone's down on Lamar and the Ravens. I like to jump on that.
One note on that I think is interesting, though, is, well, two, actually. One, the Colts have the second best rushing defense in the league right now. I think they're giving up something like 70-something yards a game. But
as did Pittsburgh.
Right, going into that game, obviously, against Baltimore.
Right.
But how much do you think they're missing Mark Ingram, man? Because that guy, he runs with an attitude, and I know you're not big on running backs, but I think there's just something about the chemistry that he and Lamar Jackson had going in the backfield that was a little, I don't know, maybe they just looked a little more explosive than they do this year. And let's not forget, Stanley's going out with his injury. He's probably done for the season. I think it was an ankle injury. That could hurt them a lot. That could hurt them a lot going into this one. I mean, look, I've gone back and forth in this game. Initially I like the Colts, but then I think it's just too many people are on it right now. I think that's too much of a line move for me to go with them. And I never trust Phillip Rivers in a big spot. Give me a game Phillip Rivers is supposed to win, and I love him. Give me a game where it's a questionable and you need him to come up big, and I sell Phillip Rivers.
So that's what keeps me from being like super pumped about it, right? So with the left tackle, first game without your left tackle, I could care less about running backs, especially when they're three deep. And we've talked about how Gus Edwards' yards per carry is ridiculous. It's like all-time good, and Dobbins looks super spunky and like what they expected out of him. So I am not concerned at all with one running back when they've got two more to jump in there. So it's about the quarterback, man. Like where's all the connections with tight ends and everything? Like he just hasn't been on sick with the passing game. There's been no long plays with Brown and Mark Andrews just hasn't been lighting it up like he did last year. I think.
Well, in the red zone, Andrews lit it up in the red zone. They got and they got to get there. But you're right. I don't think they're throwing the ball enough. I think they're running it too much, and they're throwing the ball in more, I feel like, obvious passing situations that is might be part of their problem right now.
Yeah, no, and basically it's being anticipated, and his routes are getting jumped. So
right.
I'm not out on the Ravens again. I think they're going to be kind of a bully type of team. I think they're still going to have a very good season, and I'm going to pick against them once we get to playoff time, and I picked against them last week. But just like you said, I have no interest at all in Phillip Rivers in this type of situation, and it's going to be an enjoyable game. I'll enjoy watching the game. I'm going to be locked onto it. And probably do some sort of sprinkle with the Ravens in some sort of tease situation.
All right.
Not an official tease situation.
But speaking of official tease situations, listen, if I'm going to rail on you, I got to give you credit when it's due. The tease is now 5-0 that Greg has been giving you over the last 5 weeks here. And let's start with the first leg of this week's tease. The Houston Texans are visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, Texans laying 7. You're on the Texans as the first half of the parlay in this one. Tell me why you like them.
Yeah, so couple of reasons, and we'll just straight up start with the backup quarterback situation, right? So I've got Deshaun Watson going up against insert name here. I don't know the guy, Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah.
What's his name? I'm
not even sure. He's a 6th round draft pick. Hold on, I'll find out. But you keep going.
Yeah, I don't mean to be disrespectful, right? But like Jacksonville trotting out a backup quarterback there. Houston fired the coach. I feel like they've been a little bit more competitive since they fired the coach. And I think the big thing was they didn't sell during the now I don't understand why they didn't sell, because they could have recouped some draft picks there, but they didn't sell at the trade deadline. And I think that really tells the team, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a push. And even if they don't have a chance at the playoffs, probably not. I like where the team's heading. They still got a good quarterback. The defense is still in shambles, but they just so happen to be going up against another terrible defense, and now they're going up against a terrible quarterback. Probably still would like Houston if they were going up against Minshew, because he hasn't been good, save 2 or 3 games at the beginning of the year. So I think it's a good spot. I like that they didn't sell. I think there's going to be good buzz within the locker room, and I'm just doing pick'em. I think you like it overall, right? And I'll let you kind of segue into that, but I'm just going pick'em here for Houston to win. I like it.
Well, yes, I do. So in full disclosure, I jumped on this as soon as I heard that Jake Luton was going to be the starting quarterback.
Can't believe I forgot that.
I know, right? How could you forget the famous Jake Luton, 6th round quarterback out of I don't know university.
Nothing beats Jake Luton.
Well, I hope that's not the case this week.
Another Seinfeld clip for you there.
Yeah, yep. It's very chewy, the mutton, You're going to lose a lot of napkins this week. Listen, I think that the Texans are going to need a lot of napkins because they're licking their chops. J.J. Watt saying he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild in Houston. I think that's a good thing because it means to me he is going to show he still has some stuff left in the tank if he's thinking about going to another team. I think he finishes this year strong, and I think this is a good spot for him to do it. Both of these teams, I think, are in the bottom of the league in total defense, near the bottom of the league in rushing defense. So I think that they're going to have, the Texans, that is, an opportunity to put up some points here. When you get Deshaun Watson, who is the better quarterback, I think we have the better coach in Romeo Crennel. Maybe marginally, right? I don't think Doug Marrone.
Not going up against much.
Yeah, exactly, and that's really what it's about here. I just think that this week the Houston offense is going to try and take some of that frustration out on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The other thing is Houston has pretty much owned their matchups with the Jaguars, and of course I can't find it right now. But if you can look up their last 10, Greg, while I'm looking up this here, I think it's. Let's see.
I'm kind of busy getting Tampa at 4 before it goes to 4.5.
Fair enough. Priorities, man. I got 23-3, 15-4 since 2011. 15-4 since 2011. We got it here. And now you're telling me I got a 6th round rookie quarterback out there who's got to go up and try and out-duel, because that's really what it's going to be, right? If you're going to beat him, you're going to have to out-duel Deshaun Watson. I just don't think they have the tools to do it. And this is really an experiment for the Jaguars, right? I think Mike Lennon was their backup quarterback. They know he's not going to be the answer long-term, so they want to see what they got. Really, that's all they're doing, is seeing what they got in this guy now.
They also know that Mike Lennon might give them a better chance of winning.
Well, throw that out there. Do you remember this game? It just really reminds me, a couple years ago, there was a game where the Bills were in the playoff hunt, and Tyrod Taylor was their quarterback. And I don't remember who they brought in.
Peterman.
Nathan Peterman. And I think he threw 6 interceptions before.
I think it was 4. I think you're.
I'm not sure, dude. I think it was 5 or 6. But anyway, they got absolutely destroyed in that game. And it's not like the Chargers were a good team that they were going up against at the time. I think this just feels like one of those games. The Texans are not a good team, but they're good enough that they should be able to take advantage here. And let's not forget, we were on the Jaguars early, right? There was some excitement around Minshew. They won that first game. They kept that second game against the Titans close. This team is done. They don't have the talent, right? That hope is gone. And you still have talented players on the other side. So I'm going to go with Houston in this one. I know it's on the road, but they have absolutely owned the Jaguars. Those players are still there. I don't think that changes this week. And one other thing that I like is that the Texans are pushing the ball down the field more, right, since Crennel took over. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Deshaun Watson and that wide receiving core in Kenny Stills and Will Fuller. So both teams coming off the bye in this one. Nothing really to look ahead to. Go ahead.
You're going to say Kenny Stills instead of Brendan Cooks?
Brendan Cooks isn't there anymore.
Did he get traded?
Brandon Cooks is in where is he? He's not there anymore, is he?
He's in Houston with Kenny Stills and Will Fuller. It's correct.
Is he playing?
Yes.
No.
This is
Will Fuller,
we're
Brandon.
live,
You were right. I apologize. I don't know why I was thinking he was out there. He is playing. Okay, this week. And Randall Cobb.
Guys, it's been a bit of a long week for Joe.
Yeah,
we
I know.
don't have a president in the U.S.
Okay.
He's a little confused.
So I got to share this with you. I got to share this with everybody because you said you wanted me to share it, so I'll share it. So on election night, I'm working, and it's 2 a.m., and the president comes out. And I don't forget about politics. I don't care which side of the political spectrum you are on, but he says, "Stop the counting." And see, Greg Hoyle likes to give me a message at certain points on Sundays when all of the games are going as we want them to. He says, "Stop the games right now. End all the games right now." So I just want to say that President Trump was taking a page out of Greg Hoyle's playbook there when he wanted to stop the election at 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, I guess it was at that point. So I guess I pushed the pause button there for a little bit too.
Hey, can't blame a guy for trying, right?
Yeah. Hey, guy took a shot.
I'd say there's marginally less riding on my attempt to stop things than his.
It depends on the week.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I have heard your lungs have been on the line before in the past.
Indeed.
Listen,
good thing to note as well. I don't think Houston holds their own first-round draft pick. Not that matters all that much because they're 1-6, whereas the Jaguars do.
Oh, very
So
interesting.
just think about that: a 1-6 team on the road is a 7-point favorite against another 1-6 team, right? So I think there's a lot of motivation that goes into that.
Yep.
I don't think you just. Are you going to feel comfortable selecting a 1-6 team here, laying 7 points? Absolutely.
Wait a minute. I feel about as comfortable as I felt selecting a 2-5 team, 2-5-1 team, as a 10-point favorite. I felt I'll feel about as comfortable this week as I did last week with the Wingfoot Lock going into it.
Wait, are you implying the Eagles?
Yeah.
There's never a doubt.
Let's move on. We've talked enough about the Texans and the Jaguars. Let's go to another game here.
Let's brighten up the.
I mentioned the Chargers, so let's go to the Raiders and the Chargers this week. This game is a pick'em right now. Las Vegas coming off their win against Cleveland. Chargers an epic collapse against the Denver Broncos. The line moved heavy in this one, and the Chargers, I said I was going to mention this, got rid of one of their cornerbacks, trading him away to Tennessee, who obviously needed the help. Really, from what I've seen, he's one of the better cornerbacks in the league by a couple of the different sites that rank by positions here. So I don't know what to make of that move, considering it seemed like the team was having some chemistry. I mean, how do you weigh that one, Greg?
Certainly not good for locker room morale, I'll tell you that much. And I don't think you should call the Chargers collapse an epic collapse. I think that they're referring to it now as the weekly collapse because they've gotten up in each one of these games and then they just give it all back, right? So, number one, they
somehow that went from the Falcons to the Chargers, you're saying. It went from the East Coast to the West Coast.
It's unfortunately contagious, right? And it got passed along somehow. But so my thought is like, okay, they've shown that they can play pretty good football, but they've also shown that they can lose a game. They know how to lose a game, not how to win a game, right? Versus and then versus the opposite of what you have going on with Houston, where they retained all their players, and that sends a good message. You send away some of your players. And I like the Raiders. I mean, they're not world beaters, but they've certainly shown them to be more competent than the Chargers have been, and they've gotten smoked by some of the better teams in the league. But I definitely like the Raiders kind of rolling in there and taking care of business, especially if you're going to give them to me pick 'em. So I'm seeing it at pick 'em now. So I just like that. I think that they have done well against the Chiefs. They've played pretty well so far. They're going to ground and pound it, and then just wear away with you with Carr at quarterback. So like the young quarterback for the Chargers, but again, it's still a young quarterback with what seems to be a terrible head coach, and that's not good for him.
Yeah, and the Raiders have the Broncos next week. I just look at that because we're talking about time of the year when we look ahead to games, which could be a big matchup if the Broncos can pull out a win this week. We'll get to that game in a second. Go ahead.
Real quick too.
Yeah.
That game last week, the winner, I think, legitimately could create a story where that they could still make a playoff push or something, right, to the Broncos, where there might be a little bit of pep in their step.
Right.
With that big of a loss, right? The Chargers are out of it, right? I mean, they're legit out of it. I don't know how they could tell themselves otherwise. And then they dish that corner, right? So it's just like, you're last in the division. You just lost a huge lead to a division rival, and now you're dealing one of your best defensive players. I love the Raiders.
Love the Raiders this week. Listen, I'm on board with you. I think that I think Jonathan Abrams is a difference maker on that defense, man. I know people want to criticize him for Salmon rather than Salmon there, but he on the field, man, his game speaks very loud out there. And they've done a nice job, I think, getting their run game going with Josh Jacobs, and I believe is he questionable for this week? Double check me on that one there, Greg. But
I think he's good to go.
He's good to go.
I'll check it out here.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that for fantasy purposes.
Right. And then this Raiders team, I mean, they showed a lot to me when they beat the Chiefs, right? The way they responded after the loss the previous week, Derek Carr, just obviously over it and the losing. And I got to take Gruden over Anthony Lynn, obviously, when it comes to coaches out there. So I'm with you. I'm with you on the Raiders this week. I don't think we need to say anything else. So let's move on to the next one. Why don't we give the folks the second half of the tease this week, and we jump ahead to Monday Night Football. So, Greg, you're going to take the Jets plus 15.5, right?
False.
The Jets are playing host to the New England Patriots. Right now, the Patriots are 8.5-point favorites in this one. Pats 2-5 against the winless Jets, the only winless team in the NFL. And I want to point this out. A lot of talk about the Jets getting Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 overall pick today. Joe Namath came out and said that if the Jets take Lawrence number 1 overall, he wouldn't be surprised if Lawrence holds out, pulls an Eli Manning, a John Elway, whichever one you want to credit it to, and doesn't play for the New York Jets. How good does it have to feel to play for Gang Green right now? Gosh.
I wouldn't want to play for that head coach. But there was some chatter about Burrow being in the same situation. I think that Cincinnati situation looks pretty good. But rest assured, I think Cincinnati's cupboard was much better stocked than the Jets were.
Right.
So, night and day type of situation. You would just think, though, like the reputation of the franchise, like, they got to turn that around.
But I want to say, but wait a minute, because I do want to say this. I think that this Jets defense, let's not forget, man, this Jets defense was poised to be one of the best in the NFL when they had Jamal Adams and Marcus May at safety. They had C.J. Mosley. They had Avery Williamson. They had names all over the place, right? C.J. Mosley gets hurt in that Bills game, misses a season. That goes the way it does, and Jamal Adams then leaves town. And then everything just kind of turned. It was like one after the other that they lost Avery Williamson. He tore his ACL. So everything kind of just stacked up against that defense last season. And the dominoes continue to fall this year with Mosley opting out. Offensively, no excuses. They have no playmakers on offense. The offensive line is injured. There's no consistency. I mean, everything that's going on there. And they seem like a reactionary team that's kind of like tried to do things just to make it work when something doesn't, right? They don't seem like they're sticking with their game plan, so to speak.
Because they don't really have one.
Right. Everybody's just trying to look out for themselves right now. And that is a bad thing in a team sport.
Yeah. A lot of talk about leadership going on in the country right now. Look no further than the Jets to realize that they don't have the right guy. So hopefully, they'll get enough votes from Georgia to get him out of there. So enough talking about bad teams, because we just did that with the Jags in Houston. We're going against the Jets. We're going to take the Pats. I was telling you, I was a little annoyed because this morning it was at 7.5, so you can slap a 7-point teaser there and load up when you're going from 7.5 to just pick them, because then you can hedge with some pretty decent insurance on the money line there with the Jets if you so choose. If it gets much past, I'm going to grab it now while it's at 8.5. That way I get it at 1.5, and then hopefully it goes up to 9.5 or 10, and then I can have a decent, hedging middle if I so choose. But I probably won't. One of the things I heard this week was that the Jets and Darnold have scored 3 points in his last 2 starts against the Patriots. So even though Tom Brady is no longer there, right, I think the Patriots showed you something and were charging down the field. I was on them last week. I was gonna grab them on the tees last week, but you swayed me to Pittsburgh, which ended up being lovely. It would have won either way. But I liked the Patriots to play that game. I thought they showed that they were in it with Buffalo. And I don't think that this is a bad team. I just don't think it's, the team that it used to be. You lost the greatest quarterback of all time. Cam still got a lot to play for here, and this is a chance for them to go out and get a W. So I'll take the 7 off there. It'll be New England minus 1.5, so it'll be Houston to win. If this doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, let me just say it's 5-0 the last couple of weeks. We're going to take the 1-6 Houston Texans to win as the front end, and then we'll take the 2-5 Patriots to win by 2 or more.
Combined 3 wins.
Buddy. Don't worry.
Listen, we just need him to win outright. You mentioned that the Jets have scored, or Sam Darnold specifically led Jets have scored 3 points in their last couple games against the New England Patriots. I think that's interesting because do you know how many points a game the Jets are averaging as a team against anyone this season?
8.
Close. It's sub 12, 11 and some change. 11 and some change, lowest in the league. That's horrible. That is horrible.
Yeah. So, and we were talking maybe the under or the, if for any reason you're on the over for this game, do yourself a favor, right? And just do the Pats team total, right? But if you're on the under, certainly, the Jets team under is not a bad idea either with those 11.5 points. The implied team totals probably 16 and some change, 17. I haven't looked into it yet. But yeah, that's pretty bad. And the Patriots, they haven't fallen that far on defense. They've still got a good D. They held Buffalo in pretty good check last week. So, I think you're going down an interesting path.
41.5 is or 42 is the total for the game that I'm seeing out there right now. Look, Patriots only averaging about 19 points a game this season themselves. I think, though, this is just the moment for them to get right as we head into the second half of the season here. And I still won't count the Patriots out. I'm not going to count the Patriots out of the division just yet. I know that hurt them, but they get to play the Bills again, and they get the AFC East. So I'm not gonna say. I wonder what they are to win the division.
Love them for this game. I'm counting them out of the division.
All right. We'll see.
I don't like the quarterback.
2 more games for you here. The Atlanta Falcons right now minus 4.5 points as they host the Denver Broncos here. Broncos coming off, as we said, that unbelievable comeback, while the Falcons are coming off their win Thursday night. Look like they might blow it again as they get the pick to end the game there. But, extra rest for the Atlanta Falcons. Man, they've been a different team since Morris took over as head coach. They have won, I think is it 3 out of 4 that they've won now with him? And
I only have 2 wins, so probably 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 since he took over. That one loss was the miraculous game against Detroit that they should have won there. Don't say that again.
Buh.
Yes. Todd Gurley should have taken the knee. I think they're getting some things together. And then A.J. Boye out for this one, which, Greg, you put me onto before. And we know about the wide receivers that they have. I just think that this team has looked a little bit more balanced as of late, right? They're running the ball. Todd Gurley looks a little bit refreshed as I've seen him running lately. And I think that has been the difference, to take a little bit of pressure off Matt Ryan and that offensive line and those wide receivers there. Julio Jones is still a monster. And if they can put up, if the Broncos at home, right, struggled the way they did with the Chargers and needed that miracle, I think that this week is, on the extra rest, is a good situation on that fast turf in Atlanta, is a good situation for the Falcons. And again, I don't think they're a very public team right now, the Falcons. So, not that either of these teams are very public teams, though. But I think this is just a good spot for them with the extra rest and that offense going up against a little bit of a banged-up defense. You had that high moment. I think there's a little bit of a come-down this week for the Broncos. What are your thoughts on this one, Greg?
Well, you also mentioned, don't they have a division game next week as well?
Yes, the Broncos are playing the Raiders next week.
So my only issue with it is the number of laying more than 3. So I like the handicap. I like the area of strength is where there's an injury, and there's another cornerback for Denver that's questionable as well. But I like with Boye being out. I mean, who the heck is gonna guard Julio? Mm-hmm. And they seem to spread the ball around pretty well, even if Ridley's not playing. Which with Atlanta's off next week, so I can't see them having Ridley out there. But we'll see. That can only go in your favor, right? So if indeed Ridley does play, obviously that's better for you. So I like the pick. I don't like the number. If I was doing it, I'd have to buy it down to 3. I'll probably just stay away because there would be too much juice there. But I definitely, that would be the side I would be on if I were making that selection.
I thought for a second
Ridley as questionable.
I thought for a second you were going to make this another head-to-head.
No, sir.
I was kind of hoping you were going to make it a head-to-head there.
0, and they're absolutely not taking Drew Lock going cross country after a game he never should have sniffed a win on.
Yeah,
no.
And that's one of the things that I look at coming into this one, right? Like, Atlanta's defense is obviously struggled. They're one of the worst in the league in yards per play, but the Broncos' offense is one of the worst in the league in yards per play. Also, Philip Lindsay, is he out for this one as well?
Still questionable. From what I saw.
Okay, I think if Philip Lindsay doesn't play, that's a big difference, man. He makes that offense go a little bit more, giving Melvin Gordon a spell out there. I think I've seen a difference in that offense when he's on the field. And they also had one of their wide receivers banged up too. I don't know if he's playing, but definitely something to pay attention to in this one. Tim, what's his name? Tim Patrick?
Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
Yep. Questionable for Philip Lindsay, with the report being that Fangio saying he thinks he'll play.
Okay. Well, something to pay attention to out there, and definitely could make that line move a little bit in this one. All right. Last game. Speaking of line moves, this one had a big line move. The Seattle Seahawks going cross-country to take on the Buffalo Bills. Right now, the Seahawks -3 in this one. Game opened at 1. Greg, you are going to circle the wagons with the Buffalo Bills. Why do you like them in this one?
So one of the bigger things being what you were just mentioning. Geez, why am I having a hard time pulling this back up?
Where are you going with that?
So they're sandwiched right now. This non-conference game, so I don't like that situation for Seattle. Number one, neither team is playing defense this year, which I like for Buffalo. I think they've been struggling a little bit on offense, and I think having Seattle come in there with their terrible defense will really help them out from getting their offense right. But them having to scoot out here, they just had a divisional game, which they took care of the Niners pretty handily, right? And I think that is why we have them as a 3-point favorite here. And now they have another divisional game. I think they have the Rams next week. This is the only non-divisional, non-conference game in like a 5-week span for Seattle. So, in the scale of importance, this is kind of where they can, take their foot off the pedal a little bit. So, like Buffalo, like them playing at home dog getting 3 points with Buffalo. I know they're probably not as good as their 6-2 record. But at the same point, Seattle could have lost some of the games and might not be 6-1 as well. So I'm going to take the points at home. I do like it to be a higher scoring game and a bit of a back and forth shootout.
Right.
But I like Buffalo. I like Buffalo being pretty healthy. And then I just think this is going to be a down spot for Seattle.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, the total on this game is 55. That's a big number.
Oh,
yeah. But I just want to disagree with something you said there. You said you don't think Buffalo is as good as their 6-2 record after their 8 games.
I do not.
I think that they might be better. They might be better than their 6-2 record, because we talked about that really rough scheduling patch they had because of COVID-19, where they had that stretch against Tennessee. They didn't know who they were going to be playing. They didn't know if they were going to be playing Tennessee. And then Tennessee was also really well rested for that one. And then they had the Kansas City Chiefs the week after in like a modified schedule. And I think, they were on that Tuesday night game and a Monday night. So those are their 2 losses, right? On the season.
Yep.
And I think if that game is scheduled differently against Tennessee, maybe that goes a little differently there. I think they've done a really good job. So I think they are either as good as that 6-2 record, or maybe a game better than what they're actually playing with there. So we got a question here. Somebody wants to know, what do you guys think about Lar Janis starting next year? That's funny.
I don't. I'm not picking up.
Come on, man. Lar Janis. Say it together quickly. We'll let Greg figure out that one while we wrap the rest of the show here. I like it. Fat Cave Studio. I'm all about it, man. Keep the jokes coming. There's no such thing as a bad He just got it, folks. Oh, my God. Listen, I hear there's a lot of holes in his game. Oh, man.
Is this our first troll, Joe?
It might be, you know what? But we welcome all viewers no matter what. Listen, I'm going to wrap it on that note. Let's go out there before things go completely off the rails. I'll review the games that we have this week. This week, the tease of the week, which is 5-0, folks. Greg likes Houston Pick'em over Jacksonville. Tennessee -1.5 over the Jets on Monday Night Football. He's got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers laying 4 against the New Orleans Saints. Rolling with the Raiders. Pick them over the Chargers. I'm with them on that one. And Buffalo getting 3 against Seattle. My better beware game of the week is Tennessee -6.5 as they host the Chicago Bears. I like Houston. I got them at -5.5. They're up to -7. I'm still comfortable with that number against Jacksonville, and Atlanta -4.5. Don't forget to check out the Wingfoot Lock of the Week over on the Instagram page, picking 75% in the first half of the season. That's definitely a good start. Chris Portente on a roll. He's got one more winner for you this weekend. Any last words, Greg?
Nope. Just to let everyone know, we give Chris the silent treatment until the pick is out, because we don't want to interrupt the magic over there. So he's tried to bounce some ideas off of us, and we just say nothing.
Last time,
and I think he likes it that way.
I don't know. Last time we talked about the magic and the process was a bad Goodwill Hunting episode there. So We're not going to mention that. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be involved.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this edition of the Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. For Greg Hoyle, I'm Joe Messeri. Remember, everyone, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether or not you cover the spread. Talk to you next week. Have a great one.